So for this little session on seated postures, again, you can use a ball if you find it helpful. And you can do it without, and you can revert to doing these lying down. So the first part is to place the ball or a ball, whatever ball you've got, under the right buttock. You could also do this sitting on a sort of fairly hard chair, by the way, if sitting on the floor is tricky. And you could have your hands behind you. First, again, as we've been doing with this kind of stuff, letting your right hip be really supported by the floor and the ball. So focusing on your out breath and dropping down through your right hip. If you're doing this lying down, I recommend bending the left knee. And then letting your right leg roll inwards and outwards a few times. So it's rotating at the hip. And you can remove the ball or move it to another spot if it doesn't feel okay. And then letting the leg relax. And pointing and flexing the foot, the ankle joint. So pointing the toes away from you and then in towards you a few times. And you might notice the leg is slightly shifting in relation to the hip. And then relaxing the leg. And then shifting the leg forwards and back. So if I show you from the side, might be a bit clearer. So I'm moving my whole leg forwards. You can just about see the ball here as well. So moving almost across the ball and then back. So rolling my hip on the ball. And you can put the ball in different places. If it feels okay, might be more comfortable with a softer ball, you can even roll your sitting bone across it. And again, you can do it without as well. You can move without the ball. And then relaxing the leg. And then sliding the leg in and out. And you can let the leg roll inwards and outwards a little bit to help with that. And then releasing the leg, maybe give it a bit of a shake out. And noticing how this whole area feels from your hip to your foot. And also I usually notice, and I'm noticing today, that the right leg I've been working on seems to have lengthened in relation to the left leg. And that seems to have happened at the hip because my knee, my right knee is further down than my left knee. So there's a bit of space that's opened up in the hip joint. And I can check it by sitting on the edge of my mat, and it's still the case. So it's not that I'm not aligned at the pelvis. Something's happened in the relationship between my thigh and my hip. So what are you noticing? And then we'll do the other side. So starting with sitting on the ball. If it gets tiring to lean backwards and it's hard to sit upright without supporting yourself with your hands, you can, of course, sit with your back against something. So something like this. And being aware, again, first of all, of the weight of your pelvis, releasing down, breathing out, letting go. And then pointing and flexing the ankle or the foot through the ankle. And then a little bit of rolling. I think we're doing in a different order than before, but that really doesn't matter. A little bit of rolling. And then this lengthening, rolling across the ball. You need a bit of space between what's behind you if you're sitting against something, so you can shift back. And to some extent, the other hip is joining in. You know, as Ruthie Fraser says in Stack Your Bones, if one part of your body goes forward, there's probably another part that goes backwards. If one part goes sideways, some other part will go in the opposite way. So allowing that to happen. And then resting for a moment, removing the ball, noticing if anything's changed again in relation to left and right side. My legs seem similar in length again. And then sliding the left leg inwards and outwards. Allowing a bit of rotation to help with that movement. And then bringing both heels in front of you. If you're lying down, you'd be stretching your legs away from you with the ankles aligned with the center of your hips. And pointing and flexing both feet, pointing the toes away and in towards you a few times. And then if you're in seated, can you lengthen up the spine from the pelvis? Maybe you're still needing to lean back a bit, that's fine. As close to stick pose as you can be. So stick pose, Dandasana in Sanskrit, is a vertical alignment in the torso from the pelvis to the head. The palms would be by the side of the hips. Maybe you can get the whole of your palms down, maybe not. Depends obviously on the length of your arms in relation to the length of your spine. If you're lying down, you can simply press the palms onto the floor by your side. And then you can see if there's any scope to hinge forward from the hips, going forwards and back. You can pop something under the backs of your knees. If you have two balls the same size, you could do that. Or a rolled up blanket. That makes things easier. And if you're on your back, you can bring your knees in towards you and see to what extent you can straighten your legs. So you might end up in the same kind of pose. This would be the lying down version of stick pose. And this would be the lying down version of the seated forward bend. You could bend your knees. You can support your legs. So seeing how this relationship between upper and lower body is in seated. And then letting that posture go. And then the last part, we'll do lying down, which is kind of a little bit more challenging for the hips again, and could be done seated. And we can take a look at that in the next session. Again, is a little easier for most people in lying down. If it's a bit tricky to see me, you might like to come to seated or stay in seated just to see me briefly demonstrate it. And this is a way of working towards happy baby pose. And also, again, some of the more advanced, if you like, challenging seated poses of yoga. So basically what we're going to do is bring one knee in towards us and see if it's possible to reach the foot with the hand on the same side. So I'm doing my left side, might look like my right side on the screen. So you might be able to touch your toes or your ankle or your heel, or hold around the outside of your foot or the inside, or maybe higher up the lower leg somewhere, the shin. And it's probably more comfortable to have your arm on the inside and your knee on the outside to reach your foot. It might be different if you're going for your lower leg. So see what tactic works for you. And then we'll see if we can bend and straighten the leg whilst keeping hold of the foot. Doesn't matter where on the foot. Might be the big toe, might be fingertips around the heels. And if it's not possible, it might be your hand on your shin or hand around the knee. And seeing if you can sort of draw your knee towards your shoulder as you do this. So more than likely, you'll not be straightening your leg. That's not really the aim in any case. The aim is to be able to connect with your foot, and you can look at your foot, and that's what babies might be doing in this developmental phase. And if you get some compression or grippiness in your hip flexors here, come to resting, have a little roll in the leg here, let it relax. So having a bit of a play. Now, if this feels really quite easy for you, hand to the foot and bending and straightening, then you can play with doing the same movement with your arm on the outside and your hand on your foot. So most people would find that more challenging. And you could alternate inside, outside. This is from Feldenkrais. And any pain in your knee or your hip, then do less, modify, hold in a different place. Rest, whatever your body signals Remember this idea that if there's a kind of alarm bells going off from pain, then stop, do less, find a way of doing it that's not painful. So if by now you've had a good go on this first side, then explore the other side, which again may feel really different. You may need to hold in a different place. You may need to pause more. You're approaching this with playfulness. I can't emphasize that enough, really. Often we have this idea about yoga that you should be able to, whatever that is, put my foot behind my head. Yes, this could be a preparation for that, but really, if you can do that, you're probably hypermobile and shouldn't be doing it. So let's approach it as a way of just playing with our hip joint and the relationship between the ankle, the knee, to the pelvis, etc. If you get that sense of tiredness, compression, and the hip flexor, release the leg. Rotation, maybe straighten both legs. Notice what you're doing with your body, what your muscles are doing, and rest when necessary. And a play with both sides separately. So how it might be to bring both knees in. Take them quite wide. Slide your hands from the inside to the knee towards your feet. How far can you get? Maybe it's ankles, maybe it's still near the knee. Maybe you can reach for the outsides of your feet or the toes or around the back to the heels. Is there a possibility of holding both feet? And if not, hold both legs. And then straightening one leg and then the other. So a little bit like walking, a walking happy baby pose. And if it's easy, you could take one arm to the outside of one knee, keep the other one on the inside, straighten, and then swap the other side. And have a bit of a play. If this all sounds a bit confusing, just play. Maybe you end up with both arms on the outside, both arms on the inside again. Just playing around. And then again, resting. Probably nice to straighten your legs for a moment. Have a little bit of a roll across the heels. Noticing how your body is. What, if anything, feels different? And does it feel different in a useful, helpful, or pleasant way.